Last time on D&D, featuring Adrian Silverstring, the human paladin, Morsus Firebeard, the hill dwarf cleric, Ragnarok, the Asmir warlock, Safrenia, the high elf cleric, and Don Kanan, the half elf ranger. The party watches as the half-ogre and several of his most trusted men make their escape in a wagon that had been waiting by the sundered walls of the mayor's home. They're making their escape with Mayor Barris Gravestone as their captive. The party calls for the actual guards of Spire's Edge, who were told by the party to wait outside Mayor Gravestone's home, and as they rush in, the party explains that the bandits have made off with the mayor. The guards tell the party that Blackwell, a human with long black hair and a beard, be the only one who would have any horses to spare right now. While Morsus, Safrenia, and Ragnarok make their way there, Adrian goes to the blacksmith to find out if he might know more about this half-ogre and the bandits. Adrian learns from Tarn Bladesinger that the half-ogre is named Balrog Bloodlust, and had been second in command of a local brigand that operates between Spire's Edge and the Ivory Vale. These brigands were known as the Shadow Knives. He also learns that Balrog was happily second in command, previously serving a human who led the brigands named Colin Dahl, which loosely translates to Souls Black. Balrog had been out with other brigands ambushing travelers who were out on the road, and when he returned to the hideout with his recent earnings and captives, he discovered that someone had murdered Callan Dahl and apparently took his gauntlet and sword. Now, Balrog undoubtedly wants to find that gauntlet and sword, but he also probably wants to find out who killed his leader, Callan Dahl. After Callan Dahl's death, Balrog began setting up more frequent ambushes, not just to murder people, but also to abduct them and ask for ransom money, which sometimes he honored the deal by freeing the captives once he was paid. Sometimes he cut his captives up to pieces and left them on the road to be found, earning his last name of Bloodlust. Adrian meets up with the others and learns that Morsus is paid 60 gold for 4 horses, with the promise that if they come back, Blackwell will actually refund the gold. But Blackwell makes it clear if they're going after these brigands, he's not expecting them to come back. Having endured several wounds already, the party decides to stable the horses for the night with Blackwell and get some rooms at the Stone's Throw Tavern and Inn, and speak with the dwarven owner, Thoris Blackoak. The following morning, the party recovers their health and returns to Blackwell to get their horses. They follow the tracks of the wagon for several hours before noticing it veers off into the woods. Once inside the woods, the party dismounts and begins taking the horses with them. As they press on, it becomes increasingly more difficult, and eventually they find the wagon abandoned and find tracks that indicate the bandits are dragging the mayor along, but not really doing anything to hide their tracks. It becomes clear why the brigands have abandoned the wagon, as the forest becomes increasingly more dense with trees. Eventually the party decides, despite the kidnapping, they need to take a long rest. Adrian takes first watch, setting up a small campfire. He is startled when the others quickly fall asleep, and there's a sudden appearance of a ranger who introduces himself as Don Kanan. Don explains that he too is after the Shadow Knives. He explains that he's new to this land, but he has also been a victim of these brigands who have been using these woods to ambush people. He's also furious because he's learned that Balrog, who is this half-ogre, apparently slaughters animals for the sheer enjoyment of slaughtering. As the two sit and talk, it's not long before a small band of kobolds stumbles upon them, drawn to them by the flickering campfire. The party is able to fight these kobolds, however several of them take a good amount of damage due to the kobolds' ability to use something known as pack tactics, making them far more effective when they're standing near one another. During this battle, however, Don hears the words of sleep whispered in his mind, but his half-elven nature allows him to dismiss the attempt to use the spell against him. When the kobolds are finally defeated, the party realizes that whoever attempted to cast a spell on Don to put him to sleep was not one of these kobolds, as none of them have any form of spell components, or were even seen casting. This alerts the party that the fact that there may be someone else out there, perhaps a part of the Shadow Knives brigands, who could cast spells. Now once again, I did this as pretty much a chase encounter with making him do skill checks and stuff like that, and also introducing, once again, kobolds as something that's easy to fight, but when they get together with pack tactics, they can be dangerous. This is because Dawn, who actually is someone that the player who controls Ragnarok knows, they've been friends since childhood, The player who is playing Dawn actually began working at our company, replacing the person who previously played Dick. So when Dawn came aboard, he was used to playing World of Warcraft and other RPGs. He was also a big fan of Dragonlance, if that's not obvious by the character's name and reference, and even the avatar. So in order to basically do the same thing that I did with Sophrenia, I basically once again introduced something that should be just a bunch of skill checks and stuff like that, as well as a very easy fight, one-on-one shooting them, but showing that these creatures could potentially be dangerous if they're kind of standing next to each other. So it's an easy fight, but you kind of see the danger. It's a fight that you're going to win because they are easy. You can just take them down, and the party is like high enough level that they're not going to really be in too much danger of going down against these kobolds. So it was basically a here's how to play D&D for Dawn in this session. Now in the next session, in session 13, Morsus was out for the whole session, which is our Hildorf cleric, and Sophrenia missed the first half of it. So what I did is I reached out to the player who played Phelan in the other game that I ran. She was used to playing a cleric, and I said, hey, we're down 2 clerics, and the party's basically headed for a bunch of brigands. I kind of want to make it kind of a spicy fight with this half-ogre. Would you mind just filling in as an NPC cleric? And so I introduced Evelyn Gravestone, which happens to be the mayor's daughter, who I just flavored that said she was also abducted, but not seen in the wagon. But she manages to escape, and she encounters the party, so that way there is a cleric with them when they go into the brigand fight in the next session. So just know you're going to see a temporary name, but what's funny is she jived so well with the party that eventually, it's no surprise, because that person who controls her is a very, very cool person, one of my favorite people in the world, but I ended up bringing her into this game permanently later as a rogue that we will meet later on. But for now, she'll be a temporary player in the upcoming session. And that'll do it for session 12. Hope you enjoyed it. This one was fun. I was glad that Dawn joined us in this game. When the kobolds are finally mother trucker, right on the last paragraph, I think our food showed up and the dogs are barking.